What jersey numbers would look really good on the New York Giants 2025 draft class members? I'll give you my thoughts coming up next here on the Locked On Giants podcast.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast family, your team every day. I'm your host, Patricia Traina, credential member of the New York Giants media for Locked On, as well as for New York Giants on SI, which is where you can find all of our written work. And as always, we welcome on in our Blue Crew community members, our everydayers, our newcomers, and everybody in between. Thank you so much for spending part of your day with us here on the Locked On Giants podcast. And today's episode of the Locked On Giants podcast is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. All right, Giant fans. So I thought I'd do something kind of fun and creative on today's show. There's been a lot of talk this week about uniform numbers, jersey numbers, and Abdul Carter's been kind of at the center of it. What number should he wear? Should he get number 56? Should he get number 11? So any day now, we will actually find out what jersey numbers the rookies are assigned to. But regardless of when that comes out, I thought I would give you my picks for numbers for each of the Giants draft class members. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to run down the entire list. I'm going to tell you which number I think would look really good on each of the draft picks. I'll tell you why. I'll give you a little history behind the number. And look, let's have fun with it. It's hump day. Let's have fun with the show today. And if you agree or disagree, make sure you leave a comment for me below. All right, let's get into it. Let's start off with Abdul Carter. Now, again, Abdul Carter was looking to get 56. He didn't get that. Lawrence Taylor said no. He was looking to get number 11, which is retired in honor of Phil Simms, a quarterback. Phil Simms was happy to get the number away, but his family wasn't too thrilled with the idea. So that number is off the table. So as far as I'm concerned, there's only one number that I think makes the most sense for Abdul Carter. Now, before I give you the number, just real quick, a lot of these numbers are already assigned to current players on the roster, but that doesn't mean that things can't shift around. So I'm aware of that. It's not like these numbers are open and available, but, as you go through the summertime and then guys get cut, number assignments change all the time. So anyway, for Abdul Carter, there's only one number for him in my mind, and that's 55. All right, Mr. Nichols. Now, Abdul Carter, as you know, wore number 11 at Penn State, which was also worn by Micah Parsons, a linebacker, and LeVar Arrington, a linebacker. LeVar Bowman, I believe, wore it as well. Okay, so why 55? Well, LeVar Arrington happened to come to the Giants. He spent, I think, one season with them. He wore number 55, and it just looked good on him. Penn State linebacker looked good on him. And it was a number that, he tried to make his own, but unfortunately, LeVar Arrington at that point in his career had some injury issues that just robbed him of his great athleticism that he had when he first entered the league. So, look, if you're Abdul Carter, look at it this way, all right? It's not number 11, but it is double digits, and maybe, who knows, you'll do 5 times as good with number 55. And here's the added bonus. It's 1 digit less than 56. So as far as I'm concerned, it's a win-win situation for Abdul Carter if he takes 55. I think it would look really, really good on him. And, I don't know if I'd want to see him nickname himself Mr. Nichols or Double Nichols, but it's a good number for him, I think. Now, the problem is right now, James Hudson III, the offensive lineman, the offensive tackle, currently has it. But you know what? I never thought that number was a good fit for him anyway. To me, an offensive lineman should be in the 60s as far as his jersey numbers go. And who knows? Maybe that will change. But I think 55 makes a great number for Abdul Carter. All right. Now, let's go to Jackson Dart. Okay, Jackson Dart, I think a good number for him is number 12. Now, it's granted, it's the only number I think that is kind of available, but here's what I'm thinking. In Giants history, the number 12 was last made famous, if you will, by Steve Owen. Since then, it's kind of had a little bit of a dry spell with guys who have come in, who have worn it. They've either been backup quarterbacks or not very good. Jackson Dart has a chance to change the narrative here. He has a chance to become the Giants franchise quarterback of the future. So why not take a number? It's a new era, new start for a quarterback, new franchise quarterback. Why not take that number and see if you can't make it as famous as, number 11, worn by Sims, number 10, worn by Eli Manning. All right. So it is a number that is available. Jackson Dart, by the way, wore number 2 in college. So he's not getting number 2 here with the Giants. Quite honestly, I don't think that number would look good on him. But number 12, I think he would be really, he would look really good in number 12. And I think that would be a popular number. Probably would sell a lot of jerseys if he develops the way the Giants hope he would. And hey, to number 2, and if he takes number 12, maybe he has 6 times as much success as he did in college. So, all right. Darius Alexander, the 3rd round pick for the New York Giants. There's only one number, in my opinion, for him. Now, Darius Alexander did wear 98 in college, all right? But to me, I would give him 99, all right? Now, currently 99 has been assigned to Roy Robertson Harris. So I don't think that number will become available, but here's why I would give Darius Alexander number 99. Dexter Lawrence, as we know, really thrived with Leonard Williams next to him. I mean, he was the two of them were best buds, they were inseparable, and they were dynamic on the field. They were the future. And then, unfortunately, Leonard Williams, who wore 99 for the Giants, was traded away. Now, while Dexter Lawrence continues to be dominant and all world and probably the best defensive lineman in the league right now, how nice would it be for him to be able to look over and see another 99, a guy who is promising, a guy who can, move around, who could spell Dexter Lawrence if he needs to be spelled at the nose tackle spot, a guy who could play the 3 tech, maybe even a little 5 tech. How nice would that be to look over and see another 99? All right. So that to me would be a great number for Darius Alexander, which again, Roy Robertson Harris owns it right now or was assigned to it. I don't know how receptive he would be to giving it up, but I sure would like to see Darius Alexander in 99, especially since he is believed to be the future, along with Dexter Lawrence on the interior of the defensive line. So why not, right? And again, it's only 1 digit more than what he wore in college, which was 98. All right, coming up next, we've got the day 3 draft picks. What numbers do I like for those guys? I'm going to tell you right after this. Hey, Giant fans, say goodbye to sticky notes, scribbled plans on the fridge, and overlapping calendar invites. The Skylight calendar is here to bring clarity to the chaos and help families stay organized without the stress. This sleek digital display syncs with your existing calendar, Google, Apple, Outlook, and more, making it simple to track appointments, practices, dinners, and reminders all in one easy to see place. Look, in my line of work, things frequently pop up on my calendar, whether it's a meeting, whether it's a change in practice schedule, whether I'm running late, whatever the case may be. And quite often, it throws our household schedule into a bit of a tailspin. My husband's texting me. He's like, when are you coming home? When's dinner? When's this? When are you available to do this appointment, etc.? Well, ever since we got our Skylight calendar, we don't have that problem anymore because I'm able to update it on the fly. He's able to add his schedule on the fly. And the communication is just so much better, especially since he's busy working and I'm busy working and running around covering your New York Giants. All right. So if you're looking to bring some organization to your household's busy schedule, give Skylight a try. Right now, Skylight is offering our listeners $30 off their 15-inch calendars when you go to skylightcal.com/NFL. That's SKYLIGHTCAL.com/NFL for $30 off your 15-inch calendar. All right, Giant fans, welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast. I'm your host, Patricia Traina. And coming up this week on Locked On Giants, Mark Schofield is going to join me at a little later on in the week. We're going to talk about quarterback Jackson Dart's game. Mark Schofield has always been very good at breaking down quarterback play, and I'm really excited to have him on. You know, there's a lot of positive things about Jackson Dart, and Schofield is going to be able to really dive into it with us about, what Jackson Dart, where he is at this point in his development, where he needs to be, and so on and so forth. So Schofield's going to be on with me later on in the week. And of course, later this week, the Giants have rookie mini camps. So, of course, I will have coverage of that for you as well. I hope you will tune in. So, anyway, let's get back to today's topic. We are talking about we're all about the numbers, right? What uniform numbers would look really good on the Giants draft class? Now, it's possible as you're watching this that maybe the numbers have been announced, but that's okay. This is my personal preference, what I would like to see these guys be wearing for their jersey numbers. And look, a lot of people have asked me, what number is Dart going to wear? What number is Scadaboo going to wear? What number is this guy going to wear? Guys, remember, numbers can change, right? So the numbers that these rookies get right now, they could change because as guys are cut from the roster or deals are made, for jersey numbers, no number is permanent. So if you're looking to buy a jersey for Cam Scadaboo or for Jackson Dart or Abdul Carter, I would advise you to wait until the start of the regular season. All right. Because then you'll know that those numbers are pretty much more set in stone than they are right now. All right. So we did the first 3 picks. We did Carter, we did Dart, and we did Alexander. Now let's look at the day 3 picks and the numbers that I would choose for these guys and why. All right, so let's kick it off with Cam Scadaboo, running back. I picked 44 for him. Now, I know a lot of you are going to say that was Ahmad Bradshaw's number that he made famous. Yes, it is. But Ahmad Bradshaw at the time, remember the old Thunder and Lightning with Brandon Jacobs? So Bradshaw was considered the Lightning and Jacobs was considered the Thunder. So you're probably saying, well, why not 27 for Cam Scadaboo? Well, I'm going to tell you why. Besides the fact that Tyler Nubin, the safety, has 27, and I think it's a good number for him. The reason why 44, if you think of Cam Scadaboo, he's coming in and he's been described as a human bowling ball, a guy who's going to knock people down, a guy who has great contact balance, a guy who can force missed tackles in the open field, a guy who's just going to roll guys over. And you know what? I actually went back in Giants history for this number, right? 44 was made famous back in the day by one Maurice Carthon, the fullback for the 1986 team. Maurice Carthon, when you're looking at Giant fullbacks in the last, 50 years or so, Maurice Carthon probably is number 1. As far as, I know I'm concerned. He was just probably the best fullback that I have seen play for this team. And, filling out the rest of the rankings, you can make a case for Madison Hedgecock, who played on the 2007 Super Bowl team. You could probably make a case for Greg Camella, who famously blocked for Tiki Barber. You can make a case certainly for Henry Hynoski, who was the fullback on the 2011 Super Bowl team. So the fullback position really doesn't get a whole lot of, love. And I know Cam Scadaboo is not a fullback. I get that. But he is a big enough, sturdy guy. Even though he's only 5'11", he plays like a big guy, okay? And, I just think that would be a really good number, 44, because it screams power back, which is what Cam Scatterboo, comes in with a reputation as being. So right now, unfortunately, the number is assigned to defensive lineman Demetrius Flanagan Fowles. I doubt he keeps that number. It's just, again, in my opinion, it's not a good looking number for a defensive lineman. I think it would be better for Cam Scatterboo. So 44 is my choice for Scatterboo. All right, Marcus Bow. This one was too easy for me. All right. I got to go with 66. All right. The number famously worn by David Deal, offensive lineman. Now, why 66? Which right now I believe is available. Yeah, it is available. I don't think anybody on the Giants has it as far as I could see. Marcus Bow wore 63 in Purdue. So why 66? Well, when I think of David Deal, I think of Mr. Do Everything. David Deal came in. He was a college tackle. And of course, with the Giants, he played guard, both guards. He played both tackles. He did everything for that offensive line. I don't think, though, he played center. Marcus Bow is coming in, a guy who can do everything. He could play both tackles. He could probably play both guards. He's going to need some coaching before he fully gets up there. And who knows, maybe down the line, he's going to settle in as an interior offensive lineman where he plays both guards and center. So I just thought 66, when I think of 66 on the Giants, I think of a versatile offensive lineman. And of course, David Deal comes to mind as being the best example of that. And I just think that would be a really good fit for Marcus Bow if he can get that number, which again, I believe it is available currently on the Giants. All right, now let's move to the last two picks, the two seventh rounders. Thomas Fidone II, he wore 24 in school. Now 24, I think of 24, I think of a cornerback. So I'm not buying that for the pros. I'm going to go with a number that reminds me of some of the better Giants blocking tight ends in history. And the guy that comes to mind for me is Howard Cross, who was part of the Giants in the 1980s. Howard Cross was one brick house as far as blocking goes. I mean, nobody got past Howard Cross. He was that good of a blocker. Howard Cross wore 87 back in the day. Okay. Now, Cross was never really known as a good pass catcher, kind of like the scouting report right now of, the Fidone has. But Fidone, I think, has more potential to develop into a pass catcher. But right now, if you were to look at the strength of his game, the strength of his game is blocking coming out of, the Nebraska program. So I would like to see him get that number. Now, currently, the number is assigned to wide receiver / return specialist Amir Smith Marset. So I don't think Fidone's going to get that number. But if there's any way he could, I think that would look really, really good on him as a potential, blocker to start, an inline blocker. And then, again, see if he can't catch a few passes here and there. Remember, the Giants have, Malik Neighbors. They've got Theo Johnson. They've got, Darius Slayton, Wan'Dale Robinson. They've got, Tyrone Tracy out of the backfield. They've got enough guys that they can target in the passing game. So I just suspect that ultimately Fidone's going to be that blocker. Currently that role that maybe Chris Manhertz has right now for the Giants. So I'd like to see him, develop, start off as a blocker and then maybe see if he can contribute a reception here and there for the offense. All right, last but not least, cornerback Corey Black. Now, Corey Black in college wore two different jersey numbers, 4 and 2. So the number, put those together and it's the number 42. Well, 42 is retired by the Giants. But why not flip it? Why not go for 24 instead, which combines the two numbers, but just in reverse? Okay. So currently that number belongs to Dane Belton, the safety. But, even though Corey Black is not a safety, he's a cornerback, the number turned out to be successful for other defensive backs that the Giants have. Notably, James Bradbury wore it. Julian Love wore it. Okay, now Corey Black, obviously seventh round pick, late seventh round pick, probably a developmental prospect, but I just think, 24 would look a heck of a lot better on him than, if he can get it. And, no disrespect to Dane Belton, who, the number looks good on him, but I have to wonder if Dane Belton is in the team's long term plans. So maybe that number doesn't go to Corey Black right away. Maybe it goes to him down the line. But again, if we're looking at numbers and what looks good or what potentially might look good on a guy, for me, 24 would look really good on Corey Black. All right, coming up next, some final thoughts about these numbers and the storyline that has generated since the draft. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with more. Hey, Giant fans, the NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't miss moments. Whether it's a game winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on all the action. If you've been following the New York Knicks playoff quest, boy, has it been exciting or what? Anyway, FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip off and live. And with player props, performance trends, and same game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. If you've got a read on who's heating up, why not back it up with a same game parlay? And how about $200 in bonus bets added to your excitement? That's right, you can earn $200 in bonus bets to use as you see fit if your first $5 bet hits. New to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. So go on and head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, Giant fans, welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast. I'm your host, Patricia Traina, and we're talking numbers, jersey numbers. What numbers look good on all the Giants draft picks, according to me? So again, as you are watching this, maybe by now the team has announced who's getting what numbers. Doesn't matter because this is just my opinion on it. But look, I want to just close out the show by just kind of talking about this whole idea, this whole big story that has kind of developed due to teams that have retired numbers, unretiring them for players, and just my feelings on that. I have always felt that if you make enough of an impact to have your number retired, it should stay retired. Okay. Now I know people say, well, what happens if somebody better comes along and, creates a bigger and better legacy? I get that. That's a gamble. But, the Giants have over 10 numbers. I think they have almost 20 numbers actually retired. So they've got a lot of numbers retired. And in my mind, those numbers should really stay retired. Regardless of why they were retired, I think in one case they retired a number due to a former player having served in the military and losing his life. Certainly, Lawrence Taylor's 56. That should never ever be worn again by any Giant player. I mean, don't even ask for that number, in my opinion, because Lawrence Taylor's impact, not just for the Giants, but on the game itself, I mean, nobody's going to touch that. I'm sorry. I don't care who they are. Nobody's going to touch that. Phil Simms is 11, which was also requested by Abdul Carter. Look, Phil Simms was all in favor of giving the number to Carter or Jackson Dart if Jackson Dart had wanted it. Phil Simms' family voted him down. That was the correct decision because, Simms, set a Super Bowl record for pass completions. I think that record still stands today. So, and here's the other thing with regards to numbers. And Mark Collins actually made this point on his X account. It comes down to also revenue. So, in the case of Lawrence Taylor, 56, the Giants 56 jersey, that's his for eternity. So if that number is sold, as a jersey, I think LT gets a cut of that. So, if you're a player and you've had your number retired, you really want to share that revenue. I'm not so sure a lot of guys would be willing to. But business aside, Taylor's advice to Abdul Carter, to me, spot on. I've spoken about this before. I'll say it again. Get your own number and make your own legacy. Don't ride the coattails of the legends from past years. It's okay to aspire to, reach those heights. There's nothing wrong with that. But, we always talk about you know, how does this guy compare or who does this guy remind you of? And for me, I've never really liked to do comparisons because it's just not fair to the player of today. It's not fair to the player of yesteryear. Guys come in, they are they're their own unique self. All right. We're not talking about robots that come off an assembly line. Every guy that comes in, even if he plays the same position as a legend, brings his own unique set of skills and abilities to that position, especially as the game evolves. So why not get your own number, create your own legacy, and build your own following? Build your own sea of 55s or 12s or whatever number you choose to wear. Build your own following because, look, that's what it's all about. These young players, some of them may go on to become legends in franchise history. Some of them might go on to become footnotes. Okay. Whatever the case may be, though, they've got to do it, in my opinion, on their own. They've got to build their own brand. They've got to build their own number, their own legacy. And, if you want to use, like I said, legends of the past as a template, go for it. But to actually add that identity in with your own when you're trying to kind of carve your own way in the NFL, not a fan of that. And, I know the Giants did it last year for Malik Neighbors with number 1, unretiring Ray Flaherty's number with the blessing of the Flaherty family. But I just don't like the practice at all. Maybe I'm old school. Maybe some of you are going to say, well, who cares? It's just a number. This is just my take. So if you agree, great. If you don't, that's your opinion too. You're welcome to it. So anyway, be sure to tell me what you thought about my choices for numbers, jersey numbers for the Giants draft picks. I'm curious to see what you guys and gals think. Do you have a different number in mind for the different guys? Put it in the comments below if you're watching on YouTube. If you're not watching on YouTube, you're listening on our audio platforms. You can always send over an email and let me know what you think. I'm always interested to hear what you guys and gals think. So that being said, that's going to do it for this edition of Locked On Giants. Thank you again for spending part of your day with us here on the Locked On Giants podcast. Be sure to check out some of our other programs. We've got college hosts doing their thing, the NBA playoffs, Knicks fans, check out Locked On Knicks. We've got so much going on here on the Locked On Network. We hope you will check it out. And we hope you will be back with us tomorrow for an all-new Locked On Giants podcast. Have a great one, everybody.